What's up, YouTube? It's Mike here, back with another video. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Ring that notification bell for notifications, and if you like the video, please like the video. So I got some work done on the platform for my Ultimas, and I think that this alligator gar wants to try to eat me right now. And I'm going to get into that a little bit in a few minutes because it's kind of relevant to this video. But I got the platform pretty much done. I got to do some finish work on it, paint it. I think I'm going to tile the top so it matches the floor, and I have to do some more framing around it to kind of make it look like it belongs. But the base of it is at least up, and I was able to get the 6000, the Ultima 2 6000 up onto it. It was a little bit of a pain to get it up there myself because it's so heavy, but I did get it up there, and it got it out of my way too, which is a good thing. So I'm now ready to start doing some of the plumbing, but I still have some work to do on the tank, so that'll come along shortly. This guy here is becoming a huge pain in the ass, to say the least. I thought that his aggression had settled down, but then he kind of started up again. So this happened about 2 days ago. I saw that this guy had obviously gotten bit, so that kind of really sucks. I hate seeing that kind of aggression. And then I'm looking at tails and stuff, and it looks like he's kind of going at some tails and fins again. I do not like it. I got to figure out what I'm going to do. I might end up selling the Platinum Alligator Gar. As much as I love him and want to keep him, I don't want him tearing apart everything else. And again, I am not necessarily surprised. I know that it's possible, and I know that alligator gars are like this, but some people do get away with it. Some people have alligator gars that simply just don't bite stuff, but most of them do this. So I knew it was possible. I took the chance, and here we are. My own stupid fault. So as much as I want to keep him, I think I'm going to have to sell him and rehome him. Look, he's going to bite the firewood cattail right there. Hey, get out of there, dude. Stupid. So that really sucks because I absolutely love that fish. I want to keep it, but what are you going to do? You can't keep everything. I can't keep everything that I want. The reason I have 2 big tanks is because I couldn't keep stuff together. What am I going to do, make 3 big tanks? The little update I wanted to do was I've got a bunch of pups here that are doing really well, some of which are for sale. I've got some black diamond pups in here that are for sale, and then we've got some hybrids that are for sale. I'm obviously keeping my albino pearl and my Dorado cat, but I did want to do an update on this because when I set up this 40-gallon breeder on a pass-through system, I used one of these low-profile strainers as the drain. So if you guys don't know, I pump water up into the tank through that hose there, and then it just drains back down into the 1100 here. And before, I had this strainer on that, and everything was fine for, I don't know, months, until 1:30 a.m. when one of my leak alarms went off. This one down here went off, and I freaked out. It woke me up in the middle of the night, and I came down, and this tank was overflowing. Long story short, that ray right there, the one that likes to suction herself to the sides of the tank, had suctioned herself over this. Now, she wasn't stuck to it. She was literally deliberately suctioning herself over it. They like to chew on this stuff. Whatever gets stuck to it, they like to chew on it. And obviously, she had stayed there long enough that it overflowed the tank, and she was continuing to overflow the tank. I was able to move her right off it. She could get off of it herself, actually, but she was choosing to stay there and block the flow. So, long story is, this was another stupid mistake of mine. I knew that it was possible for a ray to cover these up, but I just simply didn't think it was going to happen, and I was wrong. So, at 1 a.m., I threw that together with just pieces I had lying around. I think that's a lot less likely to be a problem, so I can get by with that kind of strainer. Use bell strainers. Moral of the story is to use bell strainers, not low-profile strainers, if you have stingrays. And I actually used bell strainers on this 1500. On this 1500 gallon, I used bell strainers, and you're never going to be able to really see them. Maybe you can see them from over here. So, okay. I retrofitted bell strainers on these intakes, on these drains, for that exact reason, because
This has a lot more flow with it being a very large pump on this tank. I knew it was a bigger problem, potentially a bigger problem, so I made sure to put bell strainers on this. Which leads me to the obvious issue with this tank right now. It's cloudy. We got a bacterial bloom on this tank, and I wanted to talk a little bit about bacterial blooms and my experiences.
If you watched the video from last week, the tank was very clear. I had no problems, and I was actually talking about how good of a job that Ultima 2 in this closet here has been doing with keeping this tank super clear. Ironically enough, I did a video on it and then the thing blooms. However, I don't believe that it's the filtration's fault, and I wanted to talk about why I think that this tank bloomed and some other issues I've been having in the fish room.
So don't mind my unfinished closet and tools and stuff here, but I am on city water, and what I do to try to get rid of as much chlorine as possible is I run my city water through a big carbon block filter here, which removes about 97% of the chlorine. Basically, it removes up to 97% of the chlorine. You might remove less than that when all is said and done. However, it's good enough for me to run drip systems on the 1500 and the 1100. So basically, I'm constantly dripping tap water directly into these tanks. Now, on this tank in the winter, I drip the tap water directly into the sump, and that helps the heaters keep up with the cold water. On this tank, I drip it directly into the tank. I don't have a sump on this tank, so it's easier for me to just drip it right into the tank. Now, when I noticed this tank was clearing up, I started thinking about what I've been doing lately and what I may have done to make it bloom. And I haven't really done anything different. I haven't changed anything. We added that platinum red-tailed cat, which I don't see him right now, but he's in here somewhere. We added him, but that's really the only significant increase of bioload, and that's a relatively small fish on a very big system that really isn't overstocked right now. So I don't think he's the problem. I started thinking about my feeding habits, which have not changed. I actually stopped feeding this tank for 3 days after it started clouding up, just to try to keep it from blooming worse, from getting worse. Good idea when something like this is happening is to not feed heavy, and if you can get away with fasting the tank, it's good to fast. I keep everything is still very fat, as you can see. All the gar are really fat. Everything eats well enough that I can go a few days without feeding this tank in this kind of circumstance. But the point is I haven't changed anything in the process of this tank. It's still on a drip system. I still backwash the filter every couple of weeks to get rid of waste, and my maintenance and everything like that has stayed the same. My feeding schedule has stayed the same. So another thing I noticed, now you notice this tank is on a drip system, but it's very clear. However, the sides of the tank, all the walls, including the glass, are extremely clean right now. I don't know if you guys notice. I can notice it more in person, but usually I have a bacterial film on pretty much all of the tank. So the tank has more of a tan look on the walls, and the front glass will develop a bacterial film relatively quickly, which I usually scrub off. Now, I haven't scrubbed this in weeks, and it is the cleanest it's been in a very long time. Another thing I noticed, my K3 media here turned extremely white. It's actually starting to brown back up. It almost turned bleach white, and usually, again, that's tan from having bacteria live on it. So when I put all these things together, I started realizing that it's a good possibility that my city water had something done to it. Maybe it has something to do with the springtime. I've heard a lot of people say that in the springtime, a lot of these city water treatment plants will either double dose chlorine, or I'm not really sure about any of the chemicals that they really use to treat the water to make it drinking safe. However, I am pretty sure we have some kind of problem here with the city water. But now you're thinking, okay, well, if you have a problem with the city water, why didn't this tank bloom, especially because the bioload is so much heavier? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, we have a longer established system. The system has been established for almost 2 years now, very close to 2 years, so less likely of this thing not being stable. We also have a lot more filtration going here, And the most important part to knowing why this didn't bloom is a giant UV unit on the tank. So even if this did technically bloom or spike in any way, if the perimeter's spiked, I probably wouldn't notice it visibly in the water quality because I have UV that's always going to keep the tank looking clear. So that is my theory. I think that the water company did something to my water supply that killed off a bunch of beneficial bacteria, caused this tank to bloom, caused that tank to pretty much bleach itself. I also noticed my lungfish is shedding, which they do anyway. They get like a milky coating shed to them, which he's almost through it now. That's very normal, but it could have something to do, the timing could have something to do with possible increase in chlorine. Something else I will consider is possibly switching out this carbon block. There's a possibility that it's just getting a little bit old. Technically, that carbon block is good for 6 years or 600,000 gallons, I believe it was. And we're only a couple years in, but I do use a lot of water, so you never know. Things I gotta consider. I might upgrade that system anyway, just to be a little bit more efficient. I think it's good enough for what I've been doing the past couple years. Maybe not good enough for what I'm doing now. I've got a lot more water. I'm running a lot more water. My water bill is going up. And I just have to think a little bit more about it and maybe consider a more efficient system so I don't have to worry quite as much about what my water treatment plant is doing. I think the tank will clear up relatively quickly. I ordered a big jug of Seachum Stability, which I usually have on deck, but I ran out of a few weeks ago, and I haven't really needed it for a while, so I didn't think too much about running out. However, it's good to always have some stability for cases like this. I wish I had had it last week, so it's supposed to come in this week. I pretty much can guarantee if I dose with stability for like a day or two, this will clear right up. And I'll post some pictures on Instagram and stuff so you guys get some more recent updates, because I won't be uploading another video, obviously, until probably next week. And yeah, you guys can see some updates on how the tank clears up. But luckily, no serious harm done. I think one of the benefits of running a drip system is you have a very slow drip that's constantly adding water, rather than, say, if I did a 50% water change on this once a week, I think it would be a lot more detrimental to the fish, especially if the city is doing something to the water. This way, if the city is doing something to the water, yeah, it bloomed, but again, it's not any kind of real big shock to the fish. It's a very slow progression. Now, I'm not going to get into a big spiel about bacterial blooms, how they're caused, why they're caused. Basically, in short, beneficial bacteria has died off for one reason or another, and now it is multiplying heavily to try to make up for what it feels it needs. So either it feels like it doesn't have enough bacteria to handle the bioload, or a bunch, for whatever reason. Either the bioload increased or bacteria decreased suddenly, a massive die-off, and now it is overpopulating and filling the water column. So basically, the cloudiness is free floating bacteria. But again, I don't want to completely get into that. There's tons of videos online about bacterial blooms. And yeah, bacterial blooms are frustrating. They can last a long time, especially if you don't deal with them correctly. And, you know, people come and they want to see the fish, and they don't want to see a cloudy tank. You don't want to see a cloudy tank. When you have a nice aquarium, even if it's just the one aquarium you got in your living room, you don't want it to be cloudy. You want it to be clear. So things that you can learn about how to deal with them and properly doing maintenance during a bloom to not make it worse is very important. But that is pretty much it for this video, guys. I thank you guys as always for watching. I ask you to please follow me on Instagram at Off the Deep End Aquatics. If you haven't already, again, please subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel here. Ring the notification bell. If you like the video, please like the video. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks.